Obama legacy, because I know some people who say he was a great president. And I said, he was a good speaker and he riled up the crowd, but what the hell did he ever do? You don't know anything about what he did and you think he's a great president. Well, I tell people face to face, I think you're an idiot. I think you're a political idiot. What did he do?
There's a lot of there are a lot of people. I follow several channels online that are predominantly conservative Black content creators, and the reason that I do that is because they highlight a lot of the Black population that is switching, and they're seeing it. And
discontent.
I love, because to me,
like Candace Owen is like their spokeswoman.
Not really, but
I think so. But
well,
go ahead.
I mean, there are some, but the ones that I follow are much smaller. Candace Owens really came. I mean, she came out back in like what, I don't know, like 2017, 18, something like that. These are people that are relatively new. They've been going on for maybe a year or two, but they do like reaction videos where they play like a TikTok or Instagram lives where people are voicing their discontent with the Democrat Party, and they're switching, and they're
That's
like done.
Great.
And see, for me, I like to see that because I want to see what people are rejecting.
Yes, get content. Get content.
Yes.
And I remember back in it was the election time, there were 6 or 8 different Black video platforms, and none of them was over 50 years old. And that is very important to me. They were under 40. They had their Black audience. They had a semi-conservative platform and agenda, and they were ripping apart Kamala, saying she wasn't Black. They were ripping. They were saying, what did Obama do for the Black community? He didn't do shit. So this is very interesting and a new phenomenon. And I think it could be a main part of the new Democrat Party. But we need to get rid of the old Democrat Party, and we can't use the word Democrat anymore. I don't know how they're going to do it. And honestly, Ron, we can talk about politics, and it's well and good, but I'd rather talk about finance.
Let's do it.
Okay. I gotta say something, and this is really important for me. For me as a newsletter analyst and writer and editor, I had a 14-page chapter in July report on XRP. I titled it XRP. What do you call it? Find its own discovery, price discovery, XRP in price discovery. And we had on Thursday, I think it was, a news item where Ripple and the executives and SEC mutually agreed that we do not want to engage anymore on legal battles. So that's dropped. And with the Genius Act, I'm not a real expert in the Genius Act, but the different pieces that I see are all kind of positive and laying the groundwork. So, Ron, I see an open pathway for XRP to go to $10. Just rough speaking. There's nothing holding it back. So it's really a matter of, a dozen whales, not whales the country, whales the
right.
The
mammal. For those of you who don't know, kind of in the crypto world, if you're a whale, it essentially means you're somebody who owns an enormous amount of that particular crypto. Like
millions
right.
Of coins.
So somebody like a BlackRock who's probably got, I don't know, maybe 10 million XRP, they're a whale.
They're a whale. Well, I don't know how many whales there are, but if I had to guess, and it's just a wild guess, an semi-informed wild guess, I would guess that there are probably 10 to 20 different whales, and they move the market. And something happened when we got to 350. the whales ran out of gas, so we had a little sell-off, and there were some various news items. All right, my point, Ron, is that ever since November, December or so, I've had some coverage of XRP. But in July, I had extensive coverage of XRP. What are its biggest advantages? What are its new contracts coming online? What are its, I think, fallacious arguments? Okay, I want to cover a couple things, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
And it's the on-demand liquidity, and it is the market cap. Those are just two concepts. Okay, the on-demand liquidity, as I investigated it more in order to have a complete story in the July report on golden-jackass.com, as I studied it more, I realized, holy mackerel, this is bigger than I thought. What it does is it eliminates the entire corresponding banking function. And if you want to get technical, it's called the Vostro and the Nostro accounts, the escrow account. Vostro, okay, it's Latin. It's you guys. Nostro, it's us guys. Okay, so if you're moving like $20 million in a SWIFT transfer, the other side has to put $20 million in escrow, and the party that's sending it also has to put $20 million in an escrow. So you're tying up a lot of money on both sides, and the XRP eliminates that entire process.
This is
okay.
let me do something. I'm going to show you something, because this will help you a little bit. This is what they call the XRP rich list. All right. So these are the number of accounts and the sum of the balance range. So there are only 5 wallet addresses that have 1 billion or more. There are 21 wallets that have 500 million to a billion, 51 that have 100 to 500 million, 164, 20 million to 100 million. And then it just keeps on going down.
I get it. And I'm way down the list.
Yeah,
that's
as
okay.
am I. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good. Now, back to my point. The on-demand liquidity, the bottom line point, the summary point of the on-demand liquidity is it will eliminate 10 to 12, maybe $13 trillion in capital that is tied up in corresponding bank functions.
Yep.
That means the banks want it. The banks will not only benefit from low cost and high speed, they're going to free up some of their capital in making transfers. Okay, the on-demand liquidity is a gigantic advantage.
1,000%.
Okay.
There's somebody, looks like there's a pretty intelligent individual who's in the chat, and he said the exchanges and the banks are going to compete to custody crypto, and the stablecoin holders will replace the foreign purchasing or reducing of the U.S. treasuries.
That's got to sink in. Let me keep that up there.
Okay. Now, to your point about on-demand liquidity, for those of you who don't understand what on-demand liquidity is, let me just give you a very quick summary. If you've ever transferred money with like Venmo or Cash App or something, that money transfers immediately, and you have access to it immediately. But on the back end, it still has to go through a reconciliation process that can take up to a couple of days. Well, the thing is that the bank knows that money's there, so it fronts it. And that's what on-demand liquidity is, but on a massive scale. Would you say that, Jim, what do you think of that in terms of an explanation?
That makes sense, but you talk about Venmo, I think more in terms of Zelle.
Same thing.
Yeah, same thing.
Same principle.
They make it available immediately, but I think they do so by creating a corresponding bank. Bank account function. But to your point,
but to your point, with the Nostro Vostro accounts right now, all the money that's being transferred around the world is stuck in a holding process for 4 or 5 days, and it can't be done anything with. And during that time, the banks are reaping just tons of money in like interest fees.
Well, that could be, but I think that there's a lot of progress regarding transfers. I got to say that there was a turning point, and it was February 1st, 2024. I had a bank transfer on that day, and my client said, Jim, the funds will probably arrive in 2 to 3 days. And I said, I have a feeling it's going to be a lot faster than that. Ron, it was 2 hours. So the banks are facilitating the movement. And I think we've got some element of quantum financial system. I think it's got an aspect regarding the corresponding bank function for funding rapidly, but I don't want to get caught up with that. I want to focus on the big advantages of XRP. On-demand liquidity is going to be their advantage, and I think it's going to result in 3 tiers, and XRP is going to win maybe the majority or close to it in all 3 tiers. Retail, like ATMs, restaurant purchases, book purchases, department store purchases, online retail purchases for whatever, movie tickets, concerts. Okay. And the second one is cross-border. And that's where XRP made its name, cross-border. They're not going to walk away with under 40% of cross-border. They could very well walk away with at least 70% of cross-border. And now we just had a recent meeting like 2 weeks ago where Garlinghouse met with executives of SWIFT. And he walked away and said, we've got a goal, which to me meant we had discussions, and this was a proposed 14% XRP share of SWIFT, which means that it could be close to $20 trillion. Minimum, depending on your definition of SWIFT volume. There are 2 definitions of SWIFT volume. I don't want to get caught up with it. I prefer the more conservative and limited, and that definition has like 115 to 120 trillion dollars a year. 14% of that is about 20 trillion, roughly.
Can I make a quick statement about, because I don't think really a lot of people understand the nature of SWIFT and what it is, and I'm going to try to explain it in layman's terms, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong. SWIFT essentially is a mechanism that was built in by the central banking system of the West to keep people in line, or keep countries in line. And if they got out of line, then all of a sudden, whenever they say sanctions are leveled against the country, essentially what they mean is that they're cut off from the SWIFT system. So you can't transfer money in and out from a Western country to a country that where SWIFT will not where SWIFT will refuse to send money in and out of.
Participate.
Yeah. So that is the way that the Western hegemony has, without using military force, that is the way that they have controlled stuff. And that's, so when they
dollar
say
weaponization. But Ron, right. I got to make a distinction here.
Please do.
In the 70s and 80s and early 90s, I don't think SWIFT was weaponized. It was really after 9/11. And it was in a big way after the Maidan coup in Kiev, Ukraine, 2014. I don't remember much of SWIFT sanctions, except maybe, Iran. Iran might be the exception to this argument.
North Korea.
North Korea, they're always a problem.
Libya.
Okay. And anyway, yeah, that's true. But they were isolated. Now we're getting, my gosh, it's widespread. But let me get back to XRP and the 3 areas. Okay. So we got retail, which is low level ATMs and all kinds of different retail, including online traffic. And there was something, I think it's called EVM, where developers climb on board and do their applications and integrate it with the ecosystem of Ripple. And what I took away from that was, oh my gosh, already Ripple has 5 times the Visa transaction volume already 5 times the Visa transaction volume. Okay, that's very big. That tells me that my estimates of grabbing like 10 to 15% of retail traffic for XRP, I'm way low. Okay, but the big piece is going to be cross-border, like Korea, South Korea versus the United States, net basis, monthly trade balance, back and forth. Okay, it's going to be an XRP. All right, the favorite crypto coin in Korea is XRP. All of Japan is XRP compliant. Russia is XRP compliant, not totally, but very much. UAE is XRP compliant. So we got Asia, we got Russia, which is really on the edge of Europe, and we got the Middle East, all climbing on board XRP. And then we've got that meeting with Garland House and the SWIFT executives, and I'm not making this up. Garland House mentioned 14% goal for SWIFT traffic, which is 20 trillion. If we get that run, there's no way. How is the volume? I believe in not transaction count. It's in currency. I don't really hear too much about transaction counts. I hear about dollar volume. Okay, so Ron, in the 3 areas of retail, cross-border, and SWIFT, I think we're going to be dominant in cross-border, but I think we're going to be very well represented in retail and SWIFT. And I don't like being called outrageous. I don't like being called wild-eyed, but I just don't see this being under $200 down the road.
Oh, shoot! I think that is a gross underestimation of what the total is going to be. It has. I mean, if you go back and you listen to David Schwartz, who even said it himself, he said it has to be a very high number. And when I say high number, I'm thinking 5 figures minimum.
I understand that, but I'm trying not to get too wild 100%. On that. I agree with you, but let's just focus on getting to 1,000, not 5,000. I saw 2 different videos by David Schwartz, and the guy is dense. The guy is detailed. The guy is very articulate. One thing I'm noticing about certain people in the Ripple area, Ripple domain, is that they're not just smart, but they can communicate. And that is really important for educating the public, because they need to be educated. This is not easy stuff. Okay, I want to get to 2 other topics.
Before you do that, this is actually a very interesting question. And I think it bears, because a lot of people aren't, and I don't mean this in a derogatory way, a lot of people really aren't that sophisticated when it comes to understanding this. How does high-level financing restructuring impact regular working Americans and small businesses?
I think it will affect them when it comes to managing their treasury, their money, their funds. It will matter when it comes to making transactions with their suppliers. They'll be a lot quicker. They'll be cheaper. If they got foreign suppliers, which is increasingly the case, those will be quicker, those will be cheaper, those will be clearer with fewer mistakes. But what I think is coming down the road to facilitate this very issue that was, you put up there, there are going to be more and more layers put on to facilitate things. Like, for instance, a custodial wallet.
And I agree with his statement.
Yes. More efficient, more agile, and fewer mistakes.
Yeah.
And efficient mean fast and cheap.
Yep.
Let's be specific.
And that just basically just reinforces what you've been saying.
And you know, Schwartz said something that's really interesting, and I covered this in my newsletter for July, the July report. There are many functions that XRP is destined to fulfill, and it cannot fulfill them under $100 price.
Correct.
It was designed at $100 to function. And now we're getting the adoption. Okay, to get this to happen, we need the adoption, and it's happening. It is happening. But in order to do, let me just make this in terms of SWIFT, which is the highest level. If they're going to satisfy the SWIFT volume at 20 trillion, they're going to probably need $1,000 XRP price to handle that.
Minimum.
To handle that.
And that's just SWIFT.
Right, and the cross-border, like Korea versus the U.S. or like UAE versus France. I love that link because it already has some history. And India, oh my gosh, India is going to be a very big player. Mm-hmm. They're the most populated nation on the planet right now. They have surpassed China.
I know. Okay.
All right, now we got a nice segue to my other XRP topic. I've got 3 topics, and we covered online demand. On-demand liquidity.
On-demand liquidity.
On-demand liquidity, which, by the way, was called XVIA originally. XVIA, and they decided, well, let's change the name to on-demand liquidity so that people will know that XVIA was about on-demand liquidity. Okay.
So that's where ODL comes in.
Yes. Okay. We're talking about price. And there's a bogus argument out there, and I hear it almost every day, a bogus argument. Well, we can't really get past a $10 or $20 XRP price because